All right, story number three. Now, I haven't done a lot of politics stories on this channel this year. And I've been reflecting on this for a while, right? I think part of me was waiting to see what this new regime looks like, or the return of an old regime, but it's the new regime looks like. Things are in a very perilous place, in my opinion. And two, I think another thing was I wanted to really see what it looked like the Trump administration was doing. Now, I have a ton of opinions and thoughts, and so I've been following all this stuff, and I've got a couple pieces I'm working on that are in progress right now that really lean into this. It's something that's always been a part of this channel, political conversations. Life through the lens of hip hop includes hip hop's innate reflection of the political environment all around us. But there was a couple of things that happened in the past week that I think are really interesting, right? First off, this weekend, there was a massive protest called the HandsOff protest. Now, I've been watching all kinds of FA content, watching all these different communities up here screaming at TikTok, pissed off that Trump isn't doing the things that they thought he was going to do. I'm like, well, it's Trump. He's a liar. He's been lying the entire time. Farmers, Venezuelans, Cubans, Mexicans, all kinds of people, old people with 401ks, like everybody seems to be very upset about what Trump's doing. And black people are like, yeah, well, try to tell y'all. 1 second pause for black people. Nevertheless, the rest of the country, 1 million people, reportedly 1 million people across this country marched in various cities and counties and states in opposition to what Trump is doing. So here's the headline. This is Democracy Now! It says, hands off, 1 million protest Trump's cuts, attacks on education, immigration, war on Gaza, and more. 1 million people. 1 million people nationwide. I mean, that's massive. That's massive. Now, let's say Democracy Now! Is rounding up, right? Let's say they rounded up 100%. That's 500,000 people. I tend to think that they're probably closer to 1 million than 500,000, but either way, there's a lot of upset people. Here's the first paragraph. This is a transcript of the episode. We're not going to read through the whole episode, but here's how they open this article up. An estimated 1 million protested across the United States and around the world Saturday to tell President Donald Trump and his billionaire ally, Elon Musk, hands off. They rallied in opposition to the Trump administration's dismantling of federal agencies and programs, the war in Gaza, and attacks on the LGBTQ plus people, immigrants, education, healthcare, reproductive rights. I mean, look at that list. I mean, that is an attack on the entire American way of life. Look at this. Dismantling of federal agencies and programs, the war in Gaza, attacks on the LGBTQ people, immigrants, education, healthcare, reproductive rights. like that's how we've been living in America with those benefits. I don't know if benefits is even the right word, but we've been living for the past 50 years, 60 years with certain things looks like being taken for granted. Because this has been a 50-year push to dismantle all these things. The Heritage Foundation, a lot of right-wing think tanks, extreme neoliberal economic policies. And 1 million people to this weekend said, hands off all these things. All these things. We hear voices from the coordinated hands-off nationwide protests described as the largest demonstration to date since Trump returned to office. Now, I'm curious how this would compare to the uprisings of 2020. I mean, that was a summer worth of protests, but people around the country have gotten together and said, we don't rock with none of this. The AP put together a slideshow of a bunch of images. Here's what it looked like. Look at all these people. Where is this? This is Portland. Looks like they're in the park. Here's Connecticut. End the oligarchy. Smash fascism. Axis of evil. Trump. I think this is Musk. I'm not sure who this is right here. That's Connecticut. This was also Connecticut. Born 1929, I vote, deport Elon. Doge, fascist, Republican, Ponzi scheme. Virginia. Look at that. Got the kids out there. ICE equals Gestapo. I'm not sure that's an insult to these guys. I am not sure that is an insult to this regime. Elon has done, I mean, his grandfather was a Nazi, and he's done Sig Heils and acted like the world didn't see it. I'm not sure if that's an insult here. Here's Oregon. Pro-America, stop Trump, hands off. Hands off our democracy, hands off our freedoms. Here's down in Texas. Let's get in good trouble. Look at this here. Down with dictators. Fight the billionaire. This is Congressman Greg Kazar. He has been going viral quite a bit in recent weeks. I salute him. He's been giving a lot of great conversation, a lot of great interviews. He's been speaking truth to power in different committees in which he's a part. One second applause to him. Here's Georgia. Hands off my future. I mean, look at this. California. Now, this is the most black people I've seen at this whole joint. I mean, so many black people have been, this has been a viral conversation on TikTok about how black people are just going to sit this one out. Trump has given all kinds of unlimited power to police officers. When we show up, they put bricks on the sidewalks. But shout out to these guys. This is California here. Colorado. Right. So, I mean, this has been nationwide. It was a huge, huge mobilization. One second applause to everybody. So that's been happening. Here's some more images from Twitter here. This is a lot of people coming together to state how they feel about what the administration is doing. I don't know if you guys have looked at the Dow or the S&P lately. I don't know if you looked at your 401ks lately. Maybe y'all voted for this, but I don't know anybody who did. So that happened. That happened this weekend. And so you've got people who are really upset. Now, one of the things that people have been really critical of is the blue team. The blue team has basically been MIA in a lot of ways, basically rolling over to a lot of these executive orders and policies that Trump has been enacting. I was watching James Carville talk about the play dead approach. Trump is doing such a good job right now of ruining things and pissing people off that it's maybe better for the blue team to just let him do it. Let him do it and then show up in the midterms and things might be better, right? One of the things that happened in recent weeks was Elon Musk went to Wisconsin, spent $20 million on a Wisconsin judge election. Told those people in Wisconsin that the fate of Western civilization was on the line if this blue team judge made it to the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. He gave out $1 million checks to a couple of people, paid people to go to the polls, all things that are now legal after Citizens United, because money is speech. Money is the same thing as speech. So if you have, the First Amendment says we have freedom of speech, and Citizens United said money is speech, then it left a lot of room for billionaires and corporations and wealthy people to buy elections, which is how we got here in the first place. And now it's got to the point where the richest man in the world paid $20-something million for a Wisconsin judge election and lost. 1 second applause. The blue team representative won. There was a race in Florida, super Trump red election in Florida. I think Trump won that county, wherever that was, by 20-some points. Yeah. The red team still won that county, but the margin was a lot closer than people expected. So perhaps this hands-off idea with the blue team, this play-dead approach with the blue team, maybe you're seeing some results here. But that's not what people want to see. People don't want to vote for just the party who is less bad. They don't want that. People want someone who's actually fighting for them. They need examples of people fighting. And the blue team hasn't really been doing that from a Senate standpoint or from a leadership standpoint. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they've been under fire. No one likes what either one of them are saying. Meanwhile, Bernie's out here. I'm going to go see him here in a couple of weeks, actually, in California. He's been out here on an anti-billionaire, anti-oligarch tour. Him and AOC going on to red counties and blue counties, uniting people, working people with the obvious. You give money to rich people, they save it. And that's why we're here. It doesn't filter back into the economy. We've got 40 years of supply side economics. That's proof of that. We know this. But Cory Booker tried something. Cory Booker, he went and filibustered. He gave a filibuster. I don't even know if it's an official filibuster, but he gave the longest speech in Senate history. Here's the AP. With a nod to America's civil rights legacy, Senator Cory Booker makes a mark of his own. Democratic Senator Cory Booker ended his record-setting speech the same way it began more than 25 hours earlier, by invoking the words of his mentor, the late Congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis. He endured beating savagely on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and lunch counters on freedom rides. He said he had to do something. He would not normalize a moment like this. He said for us to go out and cause some good trouble, necessary trouble, to redeem the soul of our nation. Now, if you guys remember in one of those other pictures from the AP from this weekend with the hands-off, it said, let's get into some good trouble. A break from business as usual was what Booker had in mind as he performed a feat of political endurance, holding the Senate floor for 25 hours and 5 minutes while delivering a wide-ranging critique of President Donald Trump and his policies. In doing so, Booker of New Jersey broke the record for longest Senate floor speech, a mark that had belonged for decades to Strom Thurmond, the avowed segregationist from South Carolina who filibustered the Civil Rights Act of 1957. Booker said he'd been aware of Thurmond's record since first coming to the Senate in 2013. A room near the Senate chamber is still named for him, and it bothered him. It's funny, I was born in Newark, New Jersey. That's where Cory's from. He used to be the mayor of Newark. And I lived in South Carolina for a very long time, right? Both the Carolinas for a very long time. And so it's an interesting convergence. Booker got in the Senate and said, you know, it bothers me this guy's got a name. I'm going to break that record one day. I'm going to talk longer than him. Here's what Booker said. It seemed wrong to me. It always seemed wrong. It was wrong. Booker, a black progressive. I wouldn't describe him as a progressive. I wouldn't describe him as a progressive. I think perhaps he's a progressive in spirit, but I'm not sure he legislates that way. Booker, a black progressive, spoke about his roots as a descendant of both slaves and slave owners as he invoked the civil rights movement, implicitly linking Lewis's steadfast resistance to Jim Crow to the modern-day opponents of Trump's reshaping of government and society. Throughout his speech, he read letters from Americans about the impact that Trump's agenda is having on their lives, drawing historical parallels and warning that the country faces a looming constitutional crisis. This is a moral moment, Booker said. It's not left or right. It's right or wrong. Now, that's one thing I did think was pretty cool about the way Cory Booker gave this speech. I'm not even sure if it's technically a filibuster. But he read letters from constituents nationwide about how these policies are impacting people, how they're impacting people. He didn't get up there and read My Pet Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, Judy Bloom. He didn't go up there and just waste time. And in that regard, at least he was using that moment to let experiences and pain people are feeling be heard. Be heard, right? And so this was a big deal. I watched it for, I think I spent like maybe an hour or two on one day watching it. It was streaming live the entire time. For a day and change, he was up there talking. There was some other senators or, who might ask a very long question so he could take a break or make a very long statement. People on the blue team. But this was a big deal. And look how big it was. Here's the Hill. Booker's speech tops 350 million likes on TikTok Live. 350 million likes. 1 second applause. That's a lot. That's how many people were tapped in. More than 350 million people like Senator Cory Booker's floor speech on TikTok Live as the senator approached the 25 hours of holding the floor in the Senate chamber. Now, they're not calling this a filibuster, but he talked for 25 hours. By 7:07 p.m. on Tuesday last week, just over 24 hours after Booker began his historic speech on Monday, more than 270 million people liked the speech. 15 minutes later, nearly 320 million people had liked the speech, and the number continued to rise. By 7:38 that day, more than 340 million people had liked the speech. Booker broke the record for longest speech delivered in the Senate at 7:19 p.m. Previously, the record was held by Strom Thurmond. Booker rose to speak Monday in an effort to combat the Trump administration and its policies. Despite the length of Booker's remarks, it was not considered a filibuster, though it did disrupt Senate business since it ran past 12 p.m. when the upper chamber was set to gavel in. These are not normal times in our nation, Booker said, and they should not be treated as such in the United States Senate. Shout out to Cory Booker. 1 second applause. So he's been getting a lot of positive press. A lot of positive press for Cory Booker for talking for a day. Now, I think he used the time pretty wisely, all things considered. I think him reading real issues that are affecting people, them live streaming it, I think that's actually a good way to do something that is actually pretty performative. It was actually really performative. And perhaps we do need moments of performance. Perhaps there's room for that. But this is also a sitting senator. he could play the obstructionist role. These guys can play the obstructionist role. Like here's Dwan B. Big shout out to Dwan B. Dwan B. Fantastic comedian, funny as hell. Also a music historian. All genres of black music. Black history historian at the same time. Here's what Dwan B said. Actually, I was recently on Dwan B's podcast. I'll post a link in the community section. Check it out if you missed it. But here's what Dwan B said. This is performative bullshit. Senators don't need to speak to filibuster anymore. You can filibuster silently now in Congress. Booker is doing this for clout. All he has to do is a procedural filibuster and get the same job done. Dems can filibuster everything Trump does silently the way Republicans did Obama. Can we please stop celebrating bullshit? 1 second applause. And right there, this right here, this comment, to me, speaks to what people really want from their left, the team blue. Like people want people out there doing stuff who are willing to block bills. Right after this, the day after this, Cory Booker went and said yes to another however many billions of dollars for Israel. He went right back to the things he was doing. 15% of Americans right now, only 15% of Americans thinks continuing to fund Israel is a good idea. Like 85% of the country is like, nah, we don't want to do this anymore. You wouldn't be on the losing side of the votes. Now you might be on the losing side of AIPAC. And perhaps that's what really matters. Because right after this, that's what Cory did. Right back to business as usual. Blue team back to playing dead. That's what they do. Now, I'm in the middle, right? This is performative. I think he uses time wisely. I like what Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing. They're actually out there touching the people, talking to people, putting things in perspective, perhaps converting some people who might have voted for the red team last time to reconsider. Or at least perhaps getting a groundswell of people so that whoever's red team or blue team in those districts has more working people policies, more energy behind working people policies that might help get someone elected who isn't going to immediately play dead as a party platform. Like, people want people going to fight. Like, one of the things with Project 2025, we covered it here. Shout out to whoever that was in the comment section that told me that Project 2025 was a lie because Trump said no, he wasn't going to do that. Well, that's exactly what Trump's doing. That's exactly what Trump's doing right now. But that was an ambitious plan. They won and they're executing it. What's the blue team's Project 2025? The blue team wants to go back to what it was like right before the election. The voting base wants universal health care. That Overton window is so far to the right that things that are still on the right look like the left because the right is gone. They are gone. And thinking about this hands-off march, is this going to make a big difference? I don't know. Is it performative? I mean, I like people mobilizing. I like people getting into action. I think that's a good thing. I'm still boycotting Target and Amazon. That's where, particularly black people, that's where I think we need to spend our time. We need to spend our time being very stingy on where we put our dollars. Very stingy where we put our attention, since we are in a influencer economy. We need to be stingy with these things. I like that. I like that's happening now too. That's the type of action I think we need more of. I like Cory Booker getting up there and talking. He talked for a whole day, and he read people's experiences, which I think was a good use of that time. But then right after that, he went back to voting for the stuff that he votes for. And all that, to me, is the real problem with the blue team. The red team is willing to break everything. They're willing to fight for whatever they want. And the blue team is over here putting on kente cloth and kneeling in the halls of Congress. They're up here talking for a day. We've had a 1 million-person march globally. Will that make a difference? We saw that there was repercussions in Wisconsin, and Florida still went red, but it didn't go red as much. So perhaps that's a good sign. But ultimately, I think Ta-Nehisi Coates hits the nail on the head here. Now, Ta-Nehisi Coates is one of my favorite writers, if not my favorite writer of all time, right? And so he's written incredible books, Between the World and Me, We Were 8 Years in Power. And so he's in a conversation here with Joy-Ann Reid. And the conversation is about the Democratic Party's moral crisis, their moral crisis. And so I thought this was really interesting. It really brings home a lot of the sentiments that I think a lot of people feel on the ground. Things people felt before the election about the blue team. Things people have been feeling about the blue team for 30, 40 years. Things that make people feel like we're in a uniparty environment. And things that are connected to the blue team's lack of moral positioning. So let's take a look.
This election, I think, for a lot of people, was a surprise that shouldn't have been a surprise. I know it was for me. I think I had allowed myself the 107-day delusion that it was possible for this incredible, Black and Asian woman to win. And then you were sort of snapped into reality on November 5th. Were you as deluded as I was going in, and what is your reaction to the result?
I mean, I don't know if I was deluded. I thought she was going to win. I did think she was going to win.
I'm actually surprised that Ta-Nehisi Coates said that. I mean, this guy wrote We Are 8 Years in Power, right? And it's a collection of essays that he's written at different points in time. And he also wrote the essay, Trump is America's first white president, because he's the first president after Barack Obama. Yeah, he's talked about, the Reconstruction era and the barriers to the Black community. As soon as we get in power, how targeted our efforts are to dismantle the things that we accomplish. So to hear him say that he thought we were going to win is crazy to me. I'm shocked.
I don't know. I think I'm probably not the best person to ask. And I'll just talk about my perspective on this, and it comes from a couple places. Joy, we saw each other out at the DNC. So I personally, and I'm sorry, guys, this is going to probably upset a few of you, but and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings here. I'm really not. But look, I personally watched them march out and run on the legacy of Jesse Jackson's 2 presidential runs. Jesse Jackson in '88 was the last person that allowed an Arab American to address the DNC. There hasn't been one since then. It was the last time Palestinian rights were addressed. I watched them run.
He said that was the last time Palestinian rights were addressed at the DNC. Jesse Jackson.
On the legacy of Shirley Chisholm. It had been, 60 years since Fannie Lou Hamer had been excluded?
Yeah.
I watched them run on that. And then I stood outside and watched them exclude a group of people.
So what he's talking about there is during the DNC, during the convention, they wouldn't let anyone representing the Palestinians speak during the convention. And that was a big issue this summer, a big issue. Not even letting people talk about what was happening.
And look, the numbers probably do not add up to, the notion that this is what cost them a vote. But I do think, you have to think about the soul of the party. And I think you have to think about, forget the party, I think you have to think about the soul of your movement. And I just wonder what it means when you are so afraid or indifferent, or I don't know what it is, I don't want to attribute motives, but whatever it is, that you, who could not have been this party's nominee in 1964, right, cannot bring yourself to oppose dropping bombs on children in defense of apartheid.
Now, this is an issue that became even bigger for the blue team, right? I talked about how all the fuck around and find out content I've been watching I've been getting a kick out of it. Well, part of that is the Palestinian community. The Palestinian community, they said they basically wouldn't support Kamala or Biden or whoever the blue team was if they weren't willing to speak up for Palestinians. And so, well, now they've got Trump in office, and he is way worse on the issue than the blue team was. I mean, Trump is out here talking about selling real estate. He's willing to move a lot faster than the blue team was, right? And so that was a huge issue that arguably played into votes that could have gone to Kamala Harris. What Ta-Nehisi Coates is saying here is even if you're going to lose, here is a woman a candidate that couldn't have been this party's nominee in 1964 and was willing to lose and still be on the side of genocide. This video is about the Democratic Party's moral crisis. He continues, though. This is interesting.
Maybe I would have swung the election, maybe it would. I'm not saying it wouldn't. I'm not, you lost because of guys. I'm not saying that. But I don't think all manners of loss are the same.
So I don't think all manners of loss are the same.
We can't control how, what happens. To some extent, this is not up to us. I think about my life like this, right? I think about, okay, how do I want to lose?
So I think about my life like this. I'll say, okay, how do I want to lose? I'm going to slow this down a little bit because I think it might be a little fast. He says, how do I want to lose?
Don't let me lose defending genocide. I just don't want to lose that way. You know what I mean? If the American people reject me because I said I can't get behind this dude who is an enemy of democracy, an enemy of human rights, is taking American bombs and with American fighter jets and dropping them on hospitals and schools. I can't get behind it, and I lose on that. I mean, I can sleep at night. I wish I had won, but I can sleep at night. I'm also not in politics. So, maybe people's moral calculus is different, but there is a part of me, man, that obviously, I wish he won. I think a lot of people are going to get hurt because of the fact, I just want to be clear about that. I don't think it's better that she lost. I think a lot of vulnerable people are going to be really, really hurt. I wish the class of people who are the leaders of this party had more courage.
More courage. And I think that really connects to where the sentiment of just the average working person in America is. whether you agree with anything the red team is doing, they are bold and they are willing to go to whatever lengths necessary to enact the things that they want to see in this country. And the blue team is always talking about, yeah, it's not the right time for this. Okay, well, you could have healthcare, but you can't really have like healthcare. You can have like the red team healthcare because we might lose. Okay, well, we can do this environmental stuff, but we can't really because we have to do it like this so we can serve this other interest. Okay, well, yes, no, clearly we're against genocide. Clearly we're against this, but we really can't afford to be against it right now because we have to get into office. And there's never any courage, particularly in blue team leadership. They at least don't have courage. Like they don't have a Project 2025. They don't have a sweeping piece of policy that they're willing to enact. Biden ran into this. Biden was promising so many things and got stopped by two Democrats. He got stopped by Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. And I looked at that and I was like, man, for some reason, there are always enough blue team members to pass red team policy, but never enough blue team members to pass blue team policy. Now, maybe that's a referendum on the system, whatever. But also, I think it's a referendum on the lack of courage and moral standing that we get from the blue team. At least the red team, they're willing to drive the conversation around what morals are. The blue team is always playing catch up or is on the defensive around those issues. They're not leading on those issues. Not of issues at scale. They get distracted.
And I think, and forgive me, I don't mean to extend this, but I think about two things, okay? I think about the fact that it was 20 years ago that Barack Obama really began his ascent, right? It's our first black president. And people forget this. But a Barack Obama who supported the Iraq War would never have been president. Sure. Like, this movement started there. Like, it actually started, like, you got a lot of people.
So what he's saying is that Obama, when he came in, was anti-Iraq. Part of his strategy was we need to focus on the war that matters, which is Afghanistan. Iraq was the unnecessary war that turned into a boondoggle that just sucked all the energy out of the countries. One of the things that Bush did, one of the scores of things that Bush did before he got out, all the way up until this Trump term, I think Bush was the worst president in U.S. history. Now he's just a lovable old dude painting pictures of Putin. But that's what Obama was anti-war, at least anti-Iraq war. That's how he ran. That's how he got in office. There was a movement behind that.
Who, run the numbers, this and that, try to predict things. But there was a moral core to what he was doing that got people excited. And how we ended up here, when we are effectively supporting the destruction of Gaza, under the Orwellian language of self-defense, I don't know. And so, you say, well, Ta-Nehisi, you're not, really accounting for the very real, and hard work of politics. And I say, okay, but let's take a second. And let's think about this party since 1992.
This part is crazy to think about. Listen to what he says right here.
You lost affirmative action. You lost a woman's right to choose. Labor is under siege. You have lost the environment. Public schools are, effectively taken as, playgrounds for the private. You lost campaign finance reform. You lost the Supreme Court. You may lose Obamacare, which itself was a conservative compromise. What did this get? What did you win? Like, what did all of this strategizing and all of this, deep knowledge about, what did you ultimately win? And so when you start looking at it like that, and then you see the same people who have led you to this loss, Bill Clinton being deployed to Michigan, to do
crazy.
What? Liz Cheney, who has, she showed great courage, but has a constituency of 0, apparently. What are we doing here? So you don't have the tactics, you don't have the strategy, you don't have the morals. So what do we have then? It's dark. I mean, it's not like these people take immoral positions and then win. They don't. And so, when you look at the long stretch of this, Kamala losing almost underestimates the disaster. And it is a disaster, And I just think what I would hate is for this party to not do any sort of internal reckoning and just put out the next version of this. I can't hear in 2028, this is the most important election of our lifetime. Please don't tell me that again.
Yeah.
Please don't tell me that again.
The sad thing is this one probably was.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But how many of these can we take?
I know.
Apparently, you know what I mean? It's last minute, you say. But
yeah.
I just think there really needs to be some deep-seated analysis about what this is about. Because they know what they're about. They're about hierarchy. And they're clear on it. They're very clear they're about hierarchy. They publicly say it. Puerto Rico is an island of trash. They tell you straight up and down. They tell you, I'm going to deport all of y'all. And apparently some people like it, but some people will be deported like it apparently. But you know what I mean? It's I don't think we have that kind of clarity.
Yeah.
Well, second applause. I think Ta-Nehisi brings up a number of very crucial issues, and I think they're all connected to feelings that many of us have had for a very long time about the blue team. It's the vote for the less amount of evil. And I don't regret any time I've ever voted for the blue team. I'm not one of them people. I definitely am somebody who is anti-Confederate, I'll tell you that. I definitely understand that black people aren't slaves to the blue team. No, we're in opposition to the Confederacy. Most of us live in red states. We've been under Confederate regimes the entire time. We vote in opposition to the Confederacy. So whatever the South is doing, we do the opposite. The South got on a red shirt, we put on a blue shirt. If the Southern states put on a blue shirt, we put on a red shirt. But that's the reason why we're the most reliable base that the blue team has. And if you really think about what Ta-Nehisi Coates just points out there from 1992, we lost affirmative action, we lost the women's right to choose, we're losing on the environment, we lost health care. Well, we got health care, we got the red team plan, and we're about to lose health care. We're losing on morals, at least the moral argument. And I think the blue team really has a lot of, and I'm watching James Carville and these guys talk about the best thing to do is to play dead. And now it looks like they're having some success at playing dead. And maybe they get back in office again and they can stop some stuff, and maybe they can't. But what are they actually doing to forward the issues of most importance for the constituents? The blue team slows things down and cleans things up. And I think this is a time where we need people who are courageous enough to vote and legislate towards this massive 1 million people strong frustration that is spanning the political divide when it comes to things that are happening to working people. This is time for the Blue Team Project 2025. This is time for the Blue Team to work for American people with heartbeats. We have this thing here called corporate personhood. Here, corporations are people too. That's why they hit you with the doublespeak all the time. When you have clear oligarchs say stuff like, oh, the American people want us to continue sending money into Israel. Well, when they say people, they mean corporations. We need emphasis on people with heartbeats. I don't know if it's too late for America. I don't know if it's too late or not. But all I know is I'm with Ta-Nehisi Coates. I just keep seeing the blue team lose. And somewhere along the way, it looks like they've even lost their morals. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Am I off base? Am I reaching? Am I looking at things wrong? Let me know in the comments section. My name is Justin Hunt. Like, subscribe to the channel. Follow the Company Man on everything. Follow the Justin Hunt Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all happening.
Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. The mathematical breakdown of this mighty game of rap we in. It's boom bapping in. Systematical culture views, it's radical, it's all happening. Shaking hands and dabbing it. Life through the lens of hip hop, from trip hop to yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop, you don't stop. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening.